Today, we're making roast chicken. We're gonna turn this into 3 different recipes from 3 incredible chefs and see which one is the best. Welcome to the roast chicken battle. I absolutely love roast chicken. It is something that I think everyone needs to know how to make, and there are so many different ways that you can make. You can make a simple version, or you can make a really complex version, which might take a couple of days. Today's video, we're making 3 different recipes for roast chicken, and we're gonna see which one is the best. In corner number 1, we have Ina Garten. This is the most famous of the 3. It is super popular, and we're gonna find out why. Contestant number 2, Julia Child. I love her recipes. We're making her French-inspired roast chicken. And last but not least, we are going to a 3 Michelin-starred chef, Thomas Keller, and we're gonna see how a Michelin-starred chef makes some roast chicken. It all comes down to who has the best roast chicken, and in today's battle, we're gonna find out. Let's jump in the kitchen and start making some delicious roast chicken. Our first recipe is from Ina Garten. Her first step is for us to wash the chicken, which I'm a little surprised at. I've always been told not to do this, but we're gonna follow the recipe. Just be careful that you don't splash a lot of water everywhere. We're gonna dry this off with some paper towel. Make sure you get every nook and cranny, including the inside of the cavity. Once it's dry, get a baking dish, and we're going to lightly season the outside of the chicken. One of the best ways to make roast chicken taste better is to add some seasonings to the inside. So I've started with a bit of salt and pepper. We're going to add some thyme, some halved lemon, and some garlic that's just been cut along the equator. Once it's full, place one of the halved lemons at the end so everything stays inside. Next, we're going to brush this with some melted butter because butter is delicious. And it's going to help give this a really nice brown, crispy exterior. Now we're going to season the outside again a little more liberally with some salt and some pepper. And then we're going to tie off the legs. Cut some butcher's twine, pull the legs together, wrap it a few times underneath, and tighten the legs. You don't have to tighten them too tight, but enough that everything's going to stay in place. Tuck the wings underneath the bird so you have one uniform shape. Put some sliced onions along the outside. We'll talk about why in a second. So the chicken is going into a super hot oven, 425 Fahrenheit, 15 to 20 Celsius for an hour and a half. Name of the game with Ina Garten's recipe is simplicity. We're not going to do anything fancy here, and it's going to look like this when it's done. We have something that's really nice and golden brown, but most importantly, we need to let this rest so that the juices reabsorb into the meat. Put it on a plate, cover it with tin foil, and then set it aside. This gives us enough time to make a sauce. This is a perfect use of our pan drippings. I'm going to drain out those onions that we had. We added those onions initially so that we could flavor this sauce. Put the pan drippings and some chicken stock in a small pot and boil it down for about 5 minutes. This is where I screwed up. I'm supposed to cook this right in the roasting tray. When I make these videos, I'm cooking on an induction stove. Clay and induction don't work well together. Problem is I'm gonna add some flour, but you can't just add flour right into a sauce. It just gets lumpy and disgusting. You have to cook it in a fat first, but for some reason, I don't want to do this. I misread the recipe, and it's now a disaster. Let's see if we can fix it. I'm gonna use a whisk and try and whisk all of the lumps out. Wasn't completely working, but we can just strain everything through a fine mesh sieve, push everything through with a spatula, scrape off the end, and there we go. We've got a delicious sauce. Completely saved. The only thing left to do is to carve our chicken. Take the tin foil off the chicken and put it onto a cutting board. Snip off the butcher's twine that we tied the legs up with, and then I'm going to start by cutting off the legs. This is a drumstick. Oh, delicious this looks. I'm going to set it on a plate and cut the rest down. Take off the other drumstick. The wings come off pretty easily. To separate the chicken breast, just slide your knife down the center, making long cuts. Eventually you'll get to the bottom. And here we go. This is a roast chicken cut into 8 pieces: wings, drumstick, thighs, and breast. In each of these recipes, I'm going to eat the chicken breast, put that on a plate, spoon on some of our sauce, and it's time to taste. Chicken number 1. This is Ina Garten's. Make sure I get some sauce. It's really good. I thought it was going to be overcooked because it spent so long in the oven. It's really not. This is really nice. Roast chicken number 1 was a pretty big success. Stick around in this video. We've got 2 more fantastic recipes for you, including one from a Michelin-starred chef. Before we get there, we're going to make a French-inspired version from Julia Child, who is one of my absolute favorite TV chef personalities. Let's see how she makes a roast chicken. We're going to get started on our French-inspired chicken by making a mirepoix. We're going to start with some butter, put that in a pan, and let it melt. Once it's melted, we're going to add our mirepoix vegetables, carrots, onions, and celery. We're going to saute those for a couple of minutes. We don't want any color. We just want to cook out some of the water and intensify the flavors. After about 5 minutes or so, I'm going to add some thyme, and we're going to set that aside. Let's prepare our chicken. Like before, we are going to stuff the cavity, season it first with some salt and pepper, and add our mirepoix vegetables. Spoon as much as you can possibly fit in there. I'm going to rip off some parsley stems and then use some of the celery leaves from when I was creating my mirepoix. Last but not least, we're adding some lemon because lemon and chicken go great together. And now instead of melting butter, we're going to massage some butter onto this skin. I'm not really sure how this makes a difference, but Julia Child says to do it, so I'm going to do it. Once we've got butter all over the chicken, we are ready to tie the legs again. Exact same way as we did before. Just make a couple of loops on the back of the leg, tighten it so that it holds together, and then we're going on to a tray this time, wire rack on the bottom so that it doesn't touch the bottom. Season it with some salt. So in our first recipe, we kept the temperature the same the entire way through. In Julia's recipe with the French-inspired version, we're going to change things up a little. We've got the oven at a really, really high temperature. About the same as before, 425 Fahrenheit, 215, 220 Celsius, and we're gonna roast the chicken for about 15 minutes at this temperature, and it'll look something like this. You should definitely be seeing some browning on the top. We're going to help that along by brushing this with some more butter, because this is a French recipe. You can hear some of that crunch on there. We're really getting some good crispiness on the outside. Now it's got to go back into the oven to finish cooking. Before that, we're going to add some carrots and onions this time, and into the oven it goes. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop the temperature to 350 Fahrenheit, or Alexa, what's 350 Fahrenheit in Celsius? 176 Fahrenheit, 175 is probably good. And we're gonna cook this low and slow, which should get us a more tender, a more juicy chicken on the inside. Sear on the outside to get really nice color, low and slow to make sure it cooks properly on the inside. So this roasted for about 45 minutes. Now I'm going to brush it with some lemon juice and add a little bit of water to the bottom of the pan to try and prevent the vegetables from burning. Going back in the oven. After about another 45 minutes, about an hour 45 in total, our chicken is done. I'm going to spear it and let the juices drain into the pan. And again, we're going to set the chicken aside to rest, which again gives us some time to turn our pan drippings into a sauce. I'm going to drain it like before, but we're using a different technique this time, so I promise I won't screw up. Into a saucepan, we're going to add the drippings and some chicken stock. We're making a jus, so we're just going to reduce this. No flour, no thickeners. We want something that's pretty light, but with the flavors still intense from reducing it. Chicken has rested, so let's cut it down like before, snip off the butcher's twine, and I'm going to take the leg off first again. Just cutting around the drumstick. Looks delicious as well. Set that aside, cut off the other drumsticks and the other legs, separate the breast meat. Like before, I'm going to eat the chicken breast, get that on a plate, spoon on some sauce, and let's give this a try. So Julia Child, French-inspired roast chicken. This one definitely took a lot longer to make. We started at a high temperature and then dropped the temperature. Let's see how much of a difference that made. It's really good as well. The sauce in particular is really different. Two fantastic recipes. They were both really, really tasty, even though their preparation differed a little bit. I wouldn't say they were drastically different, but there were some nuances between Ina Garten and Julia Child. Our third roast chicken recipe is from Thomas Keller. Thomas Keller has got a bunch of Michelin stars. He's got the French Laundry, Hersey in New York. He makes really, really delicious food, and it's no surprise that his Michelin star-inspired roast chicken is the most complex of the three. This recipe starts by making a brine. So I've got a really big pot here, and I'm going to add some water to it. Then we're adding a bunch of salt, and then we're going to flavor the brine with some lemons. Every single one of our chefs has put lemons in their recipe. Some thyme, some parsley, some bay leaves, garlic, cut down the equator like before, some whole peppercorns, and then we're going to sweeten it with some honey. You could use just regular sugar here if you wanted, but honey will give it a nicer flavor. Bring this to a boil. We want everything to be dissolved. Basically, when it comes to a boil, just stir it quickly and you're ready to go. And this has to go in the fridge to cool down completely. While that's cooling down, we're going to prepare our chicken. We're going to take the wishbone out of the chicken. This is optional, but it's going to make it a lot easier to carve it. So just cut along the sides of the wishbone and then use your fingers to scrape the bone out. Push forward slightly and then the wishbone should pull out. Sometimes they're broken. Just be a little careful so you don't cut yourself. This one came out cleanly. Just going to set this aside. Our brine spent about half an hour in the fridge. It is completely cold and we can now add our chicken into the brine. Submerge it completely, and then this is going in the fridge to get all salty and delicious. We can take the chicken out of the brine, and we need to dry off the chicken completely. Like we did in recipe number 1, make sure every part of it is dry. We're gonna deal with that in a second, but before we do, let's truss this chicken. To truss the chicken, we need butcher's twine like before, and we're gonna go under the Pope's nose, which is that little piece there, and then make a figure 8 by looping around the legs. Tighten that little bit, and then go over top of the legs and around sort of underneath the side of the breast. Then go over top of the neck, make a sort of slip knot, and go back underneath the wing and over top of the leg and tie basically where you started off. Tuck the wing into the side and securing it with the string, and that is how you truss a chicken. It looks harder than it is. After a few tries, you'll get the hang of it. So our chicken has spent a few hours in the brine. That wasn't complicated enough. We've got one other step to take this up a whole nother level. Drying out the chicken, or really specifically drying out the skin, is going to get us a really, really crispy and really, really delicious exterior of our chicken. How do you dry out the chicken? Just leave it sitting on the counter. That's going to be in the danger zone for bacteria. Everyone has one of these. Oh, this is harder than I think. You can dry things out in the fridge. You ever left something uncovered in the fridge? After a day or two, it's really, really dried out. Cold air has less moisture in it than warm air, so that's sort of point number one. Fridges are also really dry. Basically, it's moving air around. It takes warm air, passes it over old coils, and what it also does is it takes some of the water. This is why you sometimes see drips in the back of your refrigerator. So this is perfect for us. If you've seen my chicken wing recipe, it's linked either in this corner, up in this corner. I did something really, really similar. We need to leave this in the fridge uncovered for 2 days in order to get the effect that Thomas Keller is looking for in his roast chicken. No one says being a Michelin-starred chef is easy, so let's give this a couple of days and come back and see what it looks like. So through the magic of television, it's a few days later and we have a really nice dried out chicken. We need to bring that up to room temperature. It's really important to temper this. So while we're doing that, we can prepare our vegetables. Got some potatoes, some leeks, some carrots, some onions. I'm using shallot as well. You could use really any root vegetable. And now I got some clarified butter, which is a fancy Michelin-starred ingredient, basically just taking the milk solids out of butter. And then with my hands, I'm just gonna toss all of this together. I'm gonna make a nest, place my chicken right in the center. Then brush it with even more clarified butter, sprinkling with salt. Then we're following the exact same technique that we use with Julia Child, 475 Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, and reduce the temperature 400 for another 30 to 45 minutes, or until it looks about like this. Like before, we need to let our chicken rest, which gives us enough time to just quickly prepare our vegetables, toss them around, add a little bit of lemon on top for a bit of contrasting flavors, and place that somewhere warm, and we can deal with our chicken. Now that the chicken has rested, we are ready to carve it. It's actually a little easier to get the twine off of this. Just cut off our trussed twine, and then we should be able to cut our chicken down similar to how we have before. Got a drumstick here. Now that the wishbone's not there, cutting down the chicken breast is actually a lot easier. Set that all on a plate, and we've got our third and final chicken. This one actually tells us to season the chicken. We're gonna use a bit of gray salt, and then we can set up our plate. All right, we've got our Michelin-starred roast chicken from Thomas Keller. Even got some vegetables with it. A full meal. Really, really flavorful chicken. And the skin is really, really crispy as well. Try some of the veg too. Oh, that's awesome. The chicken drippings and the lemon and the gray salt that we put on top. This is fantastic. Really, really good way to finish up our roast chicken battle. We went from Ina Garten's simple and delicious roast chicken to a Julia Child recipe, and finally a super complicated, multi-day Michelin-starred roast chicken. Who is the winner of this battle? Is it Ina Garten, Julia Child, or Thomas Keller? The winner of the roast chicken battle is Ina Garten. Simplicity of her recipe took it over the top. There's a reason this recipe is so famous on the internet. Give it a try. It's incredible. Let me know if you agree with my choice. If you like this video, smash the like button. Really helps out the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more cooking battles. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.